Welcome back everybody to another ballistic education video. I'm Noah and today we're going to be looking at how your grouping is. And what I mean by that is you can tell by looking at your group how your body language is on your firearm. Today we're going to be looking at grouping. We're going to be looking at abnormal grouping and how you can fix that. Okay? So the proper way you should be able to group a rifle is by stacking them in there up on one on top of each other. Okay? This says that your breathing, your trigger control, your release on the trigger, your position on how you're holding your rifle is perfect. You have a 3-shot group that is within a minute of angle at 100 yards. And it should be 2 minutes at 200, 3 minutes at 3, etc. Okay? So, if you have a group like this at 100 yards or even 25, you're doing something right. Okay? Let's look at this target up here. This was a target that I was shooting at the other day. I was just messing around. But this one group right here is a 1/4 minute of angle at 100 yards. Which means that it is a 1/4 of an inch at 100 yards. Okay? Usually, if you're shooting at 100 yards, you want a group that is 1 inch or less. Okay? Easy. Now, let's look at some improper groups. If you have a group like this, where your shots are going up and down, this is called vertical stringing. Vertical stringing can occur when your breathing control is not up to par. Okay? We all learned that when you shoot, you should maintain your breathing, slow your heart rate down, and squeeze the trigger. When I breathe, I remember this technique. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Some people even take really nice long breaths and then release all the air out of their lungs. When you release all the air out of your lungs, that is when you are most relaxed. That is when your heart rate is down. And you can maintain that nice trigger control and breathing control and shoot effectively. And shoot groups like that. Okay? So, if you're experiencing groups like this, this means that your breathing control is not up to par. Let's look at this group right here. You have a couple shots that are slanted, and you even have a couple shots that are either left or right. This type of grouping right here is called horizontal stringing. Horizontal stringing occurs when you have improper trigger control. Okay? When you have improper trigger control, your rifle is jerking either left or right. This causes horizontal stringing. When you shoot a rifle, you're supposed to squeeze the trigger. I cannot emphasize that enough. Squeeze the trigger. Your index finger should not be touching the stock. Your index finger should only be touching the trigger. The tip of your index finger should only be touching the trigger. Okay? So, an example of horizontal stringing would be a group right here. As you can see, this 3-shot group is in a slanted position. There is also a flyer up here, but this indicates improper trigger control. Okay? This is not a good group. You will also see groups like this in military surplus rifles. Okay? Such as, let me turn this camera around, such as a Mauser style rifle. Okay? This is a K98. The trigger on this is actually very hard to pull. That was my thumb, but I mean, still, it's pretty hard to pull. You're going to see a lot of horizontal stringing on military surplus rifles, such as the Mauser, the Mosin Nagant, even the Lee Enfields, you know, and the Arisakas. You are going to see a lot of that. And to fix that, you can either get another trigger for your milsurp, or you can do a trigger job on it, okay? But sometimes if you're a collector and you just like to shoot, you know, the old guns, sometimes you don't want to modify the gun, okay? And even if it's an antique that maybe your grandpa brought back from World War II, you do not want to make any changes to that rifle whatsoever. Don't even touch it, okay? So, here is another example of somewhat improper shooting. Let's just say it's an error. These are called extreme flyers. This is when you have a nice group going, and then you make an error in your trigger control, your breathing control. Maybe, you know, the gun doesn't go off as anticipated, and you have one, you know, go up and away from your grouping. These are called extreme flyers. All it is just a slight error in your shooting. And if you continue to do what we're doing to get those groups, 98% of the time, you're going to go right back to those groupings right there. Those are nice triangular groups. Okay? The extreme flyers are just errors. Okay? Just remember that. An example of an extreme flyer is in the grouping right here. This was a group that was shot from a M9130 Mosin Nagant. As you can see, you have a nice 3-shot group at about 100 yards and at about an inch. And you can see there's 2 shots up on top. This is an example of extreme flyers. Okay, so this means that I might have had poor trigger control or poor breathing control when I took those 2 shots. Alright, you also have one on the bottom of this grouping. This might have meant that I had improper trigger control. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, learned a lot, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.